Bees on Main, Broodminder's global production facility in beautiful downtown Stoughton, Wisconsin. I'm Rich Morse, and today I'm here with Theo Hartman, the People's Drone, coming to us from Dandelion Springs outside Richmond, Virginia. Good morning, Theo. How are you doing?
How are your bees? I'm doing just fine, thank you.
How are your bees?
Well, the bees are doing well. They're coming out of winter, and we're getting ready to do splits and catch swarms.
Great. Well, today we're going to talk about hive temperature and just in very general terms, why we're interested in hive temperature and why we measure it. So, I'll start by saying 6 years ago, we started this venture, and the main thing I was wanting to get out of it was just when my bees perished here in Wisconsin. We tend to close our hives up in late fall and then open them in spring and take assessment. And I figured if the only data point I got was when they died, that's a good data point. Theo, you joined us shortly after that in the summer. What were your motivations?
Well, I had, as you know, I was working in power generation for many, many years, and I retired, got into beekeeping, and I didn't have anything to measure anymore because my power plant background was no longer needed. So I felt the urge of monitoring my beehives, and I started designing and building my own hive scales because I was mainly interested in changes in weight. And then I saw the crowdfunding campaign from Broodminder, and I jumped on board, purchased a number of scales because I thought this is much better than doing my own thing, and I'm part of the team ever since.
Yeah, and it was, part of the reason we started with temperature was just it was simpler and inexpensive and a good way to launch the project. We immediately did the weight scale afterwards, but then thinking about it and in our experience since, what has happened is we're leaning more and more towards temperature for a couple of reasons. One is, if you're going to instrument all your hives, weight is expensive. It's 5 to 10 times as expensive as measuring temperature. So knowing that we wanted to, look at these all over the world, we decided that, okay, we can make a very inexpensive temperature sensor and, really blanket it with that. So, that's part of our motivation, and our hope was that it would tell us really interesting and useful things. So, Theo, tell us a little bit about the difference between measuring temperature and weight. What are the pros and cons?
Well, the thing is, when you measure temperature, you more or less measure the health of the colony, and you can tell from the temperature immediately, is the colony doing more or less okay, or is something wrong? If you do this with weight, you really need to look at the weight trend over time, and with a single weight measurement, you can't tell what's going on in the hive. You need to have, multiple days or weeks and get a trend. Is the weight going up, or is it going down? And if it is, then yes, something's happening inside the hive. If it's not, then you possibly have a problem.
What are the things that we have seen over the last 6 years that we can really hang our hat on, that we can say, yeah, we definitely are seeing these things? Many of our hives have both temperature and weight, so we can sort of, cross correlate and understand what's going on. But certainly my initial desire of just seeing the status of the hive through the winter, was pretty simple. If it's warmer inside the hive than outside the hive, then there's something alive in there, and you can account pretty easily for solar gain when it's sunny out and those sorts of things. But that part was pretty easy to see. We're surprised to see brood rearing so clearly. Theo, you've looked at this more than anybody, I think, out there.
Yeah, I do, and I see it in two ways. I see it as a difference in temperature between inside and outside for smaller colonies. where you don't necessarily see the temperature in a narrow band, because the number of bees inside the hive is just not enough to get to that temperature. And if you have a larger hive, the larger the colony, the more stable the temperature becomes, and it's rock steady if you have a 10 frame hive with 2 boxes and full of bees.
And this is because I should have known, but I didn't know that honeybees act as a superorganism and thermal regulate when they're raising brood, and they thermal regulate to right around 95 degrees Fahrenheit. And with a good sized colony, like Theo said, it's rock steady. It's just amazing that shows up so clearly. Then last spring, we got into new exciting areas, and Theo was at the forefront of this.
We introduced the swarm minder logic, a front-end processing of temperature signatures inside the device, and it gave us insight into things that we wouldn't have discovered otherwise. And it was interesting to see that all these events were flagged, and most of them, especially in the spring, were related to swarming. They were related to swarms leaving the hive. They were related to swarms leaving and coming back. They were related to mating flights. They were related to virgins emerging, and all these things. And over time, we will be able to refine our algorithm and get a better detection of events of that nature. Even if we don't have a weight scale, we are pretty sure that with a good confidence level, we can detect the swarm with temperature only, provided the colony is big and we have a good thermal regulation and stable temperatures inside.
And sort of the tricky part we discovered there, which was a lot of fun, was by doing variable rate sampling. Usually you don't need to measure temperature or weight more than once an hour. It just doesn't change that quickly. But then when something happens, a swarm, a possum attack, anything like that, all of a sudden you see this dynamic change, and we figured out how to trigger that and get 1 minute data instead of 1 hour data during that time. And that's really opened our eyes into, being able to take that data then and figure out a lot more from it. So what are you hoping for this year, Theo?
Well, I hope to like I said, refine the logic in order to really get the best out of those temperature events. That's one thing. The other thing, one of my goals is to get a better handle on colony size. And I'm saying this mainly because I'm raising a bunch of nooks, and I need to see the progression of those nooks, and when are they going to be ready for sale. And for me, I would like to come up with an algorithm that tells me roughly, how many more days or weeks it takes until a nook is ready. And I hope to do this based on temperature measurements.
And I'll just say that, we're getting a lot of interesting information from the field, from our friends out there who are also measuring this and using temperature in various ways in their hive management. And we will be, sharing more and more of that as time goes on. The temperature is really a mainstay for us, so I think it's important for us to understand. And then the bigger picture is to take this information and evolve it into a easy to use tool. Not using words like algorithm, but just using colors like red means you need to go look at your hive and those sorts of things. So we have a long ways to go, but it's terribly exciting for us. And over the next couple of weeks, we'll take a deeper dive into the overwintering, the brood rearing, and the swarming, and all the various things we're seeing. We'll invite some of our other friends who've been using these techniques, and hope to get into it deeper. So thank you, Theo. Keep up the good work. You're learning to read this data better than anybody in the world right now.
I have, thank you, Rich, because, I'm getting that because I have the I have the means to do it with all the brood-minder equipment that you provide.
Well, so it's a mutual admiration society. So thanks for watching, and join us next week. And remember that until then, every hive counts.
Bye-bye, everybody.